Okay, let me start off by saying Lee Brown is who I am. I have been in supported employment now for 10 years. When I started out in impact centers, I worked as a job coach, which at the time, a job coach, I thought, well, this is an easy job. And come to find out, it was probably one of the hardest jobs I had in my life. But it was one that I enjoyed. Let me start by saying you've got to enjoy this job to be able to do what we do. It's a privilege to work for the individuals we work for and service the people we serve. And if you don't have the heart for it, you're in the wrong business. It's not a money-making business. It's just you got to have the heart for it. All right. Our mission. ICI helps people with life challenges obtain personal success by providing life skills, opportunities, and supports in a respectful and caring environment. Our vision is making a difference and changing lives. That's our vision. Impact Centers Incorporated is a nonprofit organization that began in Columbia, Tennessee in 1975 to provide services and supports to individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. It's governed by an active volunteer board of directors in the community and business leaders, as well as family members and individuals served for its 7 counties serving area. It has been a positive community influence in Middle Tennessee for almost 40 years. Impact Centers Incorporated, Executive Director Cindy Graves, and myself as Director of Support and Employment. We're currently serving over 105 individuals with employing over 130 staff. Our home office is located at 1209 Tradewind Drive in Columbia, Tennessee. And it's important to note right here is that without the support of my executive director, support employment would probably not be as great as it is at impact centers. Because support employment is something like everybody else thinks, that's going to be hard to do. Can you really do that? Is it possible? And my executive director believed that it is possible, and so without her support and help, it wouldn't be as great as it is today. Employment first is not just what we say at Impact Center, it's what we believe. We just don't say it, we believe in it. In 2005, a collaboration and a partnership was formed. And in this partnership, it was done through a 1-year financial grant from the Tennessee Workforce Alliance. The Workforce Alliance in Tennessee received a grant. And in this grant, we had a collaboration, and all the department heads from most of all of these entities that's listed here, like Department of Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities, Department of Rehab Services, Transitional Programs in Schools, Employers, Corporate Connection people, Benefit Specialists, and King's Daughter School, Private School, and the Tennessee Customized Employment Partnership, which is our local career centers, we all formed a collaboration. And from that collaboration involvement, you can see I'm having trouble working this slide. From this collaboration involvement, a project management team was formed. And in this team, we decided to have self-determination classes. And self-determination classes was really important at the time when we done this. So from those classes, several individuals graduated. And 5 of those were successfully employed within a short period of time. So we had like 20 people in this group as individuals. And from this group of people in the class, we had 5 that went to work. And I think that was great within the first year. Then we decided, no more shelter workshops. No more shelter workshops. For over 35 years, ICI has provided employment opportunities through our shelter workshop and facility-based programs. Then in April of 2010, the decision was made to transition entirely to a community-based and supported employment model. No facility-based, no more. Entirely community-based and supported employment models. Guess what? Another decision was made to send a message to the community that we were moving away from workshops completely. This was done by the selling of all 3 buildings in which workshop production took place in 3 different cities. Now keep in mind, we were in 7 cities, but 4 of our cities where we had workshops, and the other 3 we only done support employment anyway. But we was determined to move forward. In effect, we burnt our bridges behind us. So you can't go back, the buildings are gone, you know what I mean? Now there was some reactions to the sale of the building. The board of directors felt like this was a positive and good plan, as it would enhance our focus to move forward from segregated shelter workshops to the community services. Now, on the other hand, families of the participants had some concerns. However, as they felt the individuals might be robbed of their safe haven, of being inside of a segregated workshop, they felt like they were going to be robbed from their safe havens. Now keep in mind that it's important to note that in 2010, when we did make this decision, we just didn't go from 2010 and decide, hey, we're going to shut the workshops down tomorrow. It didn't happen that way. It was a transition, and we wanted to make that transition real smooth, real simple, and real easy, but it was still a lot of work. So in 2010 of April, when we made that decision, May, June, and July of 2010, we began having meetings. That's just some notes. We began having meetings to educate everyone, especially our staff. We wanted to educate our staff first. We wanted to get them prepared for what's fixing to happen and what's fixing to take place. Because, you know, without your staff support, it's going to be kind of hard to do what we're embarking on to try to make happen. So we did hold those meetings with our staff, and we began talking to them about, hey, you're not going to lose your job because we're shutting down the workshops. Matter of fact, we're going to hire more people. We've got to have more people. So your jobs are secure. So don't worry about that. But we still lost some staff because they realized it was going to be more work for them. They were not going to be able to sit inside the workshop and just talk to their friends and congregate in their own little groups while the individuals in their own little groups. So it was kind of like, oh, I don't want this. So we did lose some staff members because of it. But in 2010, what we decided to do in November was to, instead of shutting all the centers down, we decided to do what we call mock closures. In other words, we began to just have mock things, like we would not just shut it down completely, we would actually let our individuals go out into the community all day for a while before we actually just shut the centers down. So we done practice runs. We practiced doing what we set forth to do by shutting them down. We still had them, but there was a place they could still come back to if they felt like, oh, this is too long, I'm in the community, I want to go back to the center. So we just didn't shut it all down. But in November of 2010, we decided to shut down one of the centers first. And one of the centers, we did shut it completely down. You had to go strictly out in the community, community-based, no more shelter workshops. December, we shut down another center. And February of 2011, we shut down the largest center, and that was in Columbia, Tennessee, because we had the most individuals there and the most staff. So we didn't try to just do it all at one time. So we decided to shut it down. A lot of people would want to know, well, what happened to the revenue from the buildings that you sold? Impact allowed us, by selling the buildings that we did, it allowed us to restructure our staff paying across all departments with raises based on years of service. Now, that might not sound big to some people, but for those who have been with Impact for a long time, keep in mind we've been in business over 40 years. So for some of that staff that stayed with us and supported us, they got big raises. Some of our individuals got $2 an hour raise because of their years of service. So that took a lot of revenue and a lot of money. So some of that from the sale of the building incorporated that to where we could give raises based on services of years, not just across the board, everybody make the same amount of money. So that was a big thing. Even when you first started, there was a raise increase, so we were able to do that. It also allowed us to add in an extra paid holiday. An extra paid holiday, which was your birthday. So when your birthday rolled around, you could get a day off with pay. And a lot of people loved that, you know, hey, you get an extra holiday pay, You know, sometimes when I'm 50-something years old, my birthday is just another day to me, but hey, it's another day now, I get paid, so I can stay at home, you know what I mean? And it also allowed us to purchase more leased vehicles, because when we went from doing shelter workshop to community base, we had to have more vehicles. And we were not going to use 15-passenger vans, and I was so glad of that. I didn't like the 15-passenger vans. But it allowed us to lease more vehicles, and that would made it even better for the staff, because we also ensured our staff that our mission is to make sure that everyone you worked with in the community, you would have a vehicle to drive, and it was a company vehicle. Because if not, you would have to use your own personal vehicle. But we didn't like that idea, so with the sale of the buildings, we were able to lease more vehicles to where right now, everyone who does community base every day has a company vehicle to do it in. And that's a big, big thing, because you can't realize you're going from having a 15-passenger van to where you've got to have groups of 1 to 3, so you're going to have 4 people in the vehicle, and we service over 100 and some people, so hey, you do the math. That's a lot of vehicles. So that's a lot of resources, that's a lot of money. So that's where some of the sales of that money went from. It also allowed us to have an incentive, because as all the providers here know, the turnover is real big in our field, real big. Trying to keep good staff, trying to keep them on, keep them hired and all that. So we decided that let's do a referral program. If a staff person recommended someone to us and they stayed with us for 3 months, we give that staff person who recommended them $200. A $200 bonus, because it's really important to know that a lot of times if you're speaking good of the company you work for and you refer someone, that's a good message. So we wanted that message to be out there, and we wanted you to speak good of the company that you were working for by referring us to people. And a lot of staff took advantage of that. I'm not sure exactly the amount of money, but I do know that first 6 months, there was like 12 to 13 people who referred people to Impact. And I mean, that was big, because, you know, turnover. People quitting. So we had to try to help with that, and that's what we done with the referral program. Now, the change began with why. Best practice and what a person supports wants to do, when, immediately, who's involved, everyone, and how, through strategic planning. We had to plan this. This was not something we just wanted to jump into, because we didn't want to lose our staff. And we wanted to educate people. How did we make it happen? In each of the counties we serve, we began holding family meetings and staff meetings. But keep in mind, when this began, we began holding family meetings, but we have already met before with our staff to educate them, to let them know what was going to take place before we start talking to the family members, because we wanted to work out the nuts and bolts, best practice, what's working, what's not working, before we actually start talking to the families. So we began having family meetings, staffing meetings to address concerns regarding our new focus in community-based and supported employment. In the family meetings, the family addressed safety issues. My loved one going out in the community for 6 hours a day when they were sitting in the workshop, they was concerned, which truthfully they needed to be, because it was a big intake, a big thing that we had to do. They was concerned with transportation, because at the time they were thinking we were going to put everyone in 15-passenger vans again and be out in the community for 6 hours. So we had to educate family on that. Public interaction. Family was concerned with how my loved one's going to be perceived in the community. I mean, yes, in some of those meetings, I felt kind of like, well, I mean, what do you mean public interaction? And you felt like you was concerned with how people was going to treat your loved ones. So that told me that a lot of times they didn't take their family members, didn't take them out in the community much. So we were embarking into a new thing. We're taking people out into communities, and they were going out every day. Every day. And mobility accommodations. There was concern with the mobility issues of some of our individuals and stuff. So if a person had mobility issues to where they had to have a van, we had minivans. Minivans with lifts in them and with wheelchair accessibilities. So we were able to accommodate all those concerns and issues without having to use 15-passenger vans and putting them in groups of, 10 or 15 people out in the community. One of the things I always realized and learned when I first started in supported employment, you could always tell when it was a special day in the community, because everybody would load up in the van and we would go play bowling. I think I've heard that once today. And you already knew this must be, I hate to say it, is this Disability Awareness Week or something? Is this the reason why everybody out this week? But we wanted to get away from that. We wanted to get away from that stereotyping. We wanted to make sure people received our individuals as part of the community that they're born and raised in. This is what we wanted to see happen. And that's what we tried to do. There was personal concerns too. What will they do all day in the community? What type of activities would they be doing? Would individuals like what they're going to have to do or dislike it? And the options they were going to have. So there was a lot of meetings, a lot of changing of plans, changing of schedules. Keep in mind, with discovery, and discovery is one of those processes that it is not something that's short. Discovery is long term. So you have to discover, you have to work with the individuals to see what their likes and dislikes is. And you just can't pair up 3 people because that's what the state says, 3 individuals to 1 staff. Those 3 people have to like each other. I mean, just because I'm in a big workshop and I'm used to all of our individuals, but hey, I'm in a car now with 3 individuals. So, they had to have likes and dislikes, and all that had to be compatible. We just didn't want them to feel as though we're just throwing them out in the community. So everything they was concerned about, and the families and the individuals was concerned about, we addressed them. Now, sometimes we say what's working and what's not working. Well, sometimes a good idea might not work in the beginning, that might work later. So don't throw any ideas away, because when you come back later, they might be some good ideas after you work out the kinks. So they're not always bad ideas. Okay, and then we start having meetings, like I said, always with the staff. But in our staff meetings, we begin to have training, discovery training, personal centered thinking training. We had a 2-day training session where the state people from Nashville, Tennessee come down and train all our staff. Not just certain staff, but all our staff for 2 days. We had to shut down everything because we wanted our staff to be trained. Personal centered thinking. Personal-centered thinking. Not the way we used to do it, but the way it needs to be done. And we wanted to make sure everyone was trained in that. And if you didn't participate in that course or participate in that training, and if you were not involved in it, a lot of the management team was in the back taking notes. And believe me, if you didn't show that you was ready for this change and embarked in some of the things that the state was trying to teach us, believe me, somewhere along the line, you ended up losing your job. Because trust me, you've got to be an encourager for what we're going to do. This job is not for everybody. So you have to have a liking for it, and you've got to be a motivator. You have to be a motivator. Because our individuals are going to embark into something they've never done in their life. So you've got to help motivate them. We make sure every staff person was trained in job coach training. Everyone had to have job coach training. Now, with me being the director of supporting employment at Impact, we made sure that one of the things I asked of my director, which she supported me in, is that supporting employment should be separate. It should be a part of the company, but it should have a different department. And in that department, I had my own job coaches. My own job coaches, my own job developers in my own department. When I started Impact about 10 years ago, I was a one-man show. It was just me serving 4 and 5 counties. But today, I can proudly say I got 13 staff members under me in supported employment, job coaches and job developers. That's the success to being a great support employment model, is that you've got to be somewhat separate, because in the homes, direct support staff, love them. I love them. We can't make it without them. But they don't have the model in their mind about coaching employment. They can do this. They can do this. And that's what I instill into my staff. These individuals can work. They can work. They're going to work. They want to work. And so we always kept them separate. But we wanted the staff trained. We wanted them trained in that whole facet. We did not want to exclude them from training. We wanted them trained. Quarterly meetings was held with the families, family advocates, ISCs, which is individual support coordinators, staff, conservators, to ensure the progress was being made in each of the focusing area, what's working and what's not working. We did not stop having meetings. It was said over a year and a half ago, I'm sick and tired of all these meetings. But it was more of a meeting, training, and everything. We wanted to know what we were doing was working. We wanted to talk about it. We wanted to make sure everybody understood that there's no more workshops. They can't go back. They got to go forward. So what we done, this is a year later, and a survey was done in 2011, and some of the questions we asked was the services, what services do you use at ICI? How long have you used these services? And as the service representative, do you want ICI to find your job in your community? Are you more satisfied now with ICI than you were a year ago? Does Impact value me, work with me to make my life meaningful? Does Impact value my input? And in this survey, over 85% of those surveys strongly agreed with the closure of the workshops and the direction that Impact was taking. And that's tremendous. In 1 year, we had a turnaround that where 85% of people were supportive of us. And we needed that. We needed that support. So here we go. Then and now. Then we had shelter workshops, obsolete, don't exist no more. Now, community employment. Nothing but community employment and community-based services at Impact Centers. This is supporting employment mission in my department. Supporting employment is the individual's bridge to independence. That's what we want our individuals to feel, independent. So that's what we try to do. And I think we've been successful at it. A successful support structure must address these things. These are very important. They must be addressed. These things must be addressed to be successful. Are the people we're supporting prepared? There again, are they prepared for a soft skill training? That means this is something different for our individuals. Being out in the community, going out every day. And I think it was said earlier about someone's dress attire, and it was kind of like they was labeled because of the way they dress, the way they enact, the way they act, a lot of yelling, y'all are screaming. So we had to make sure that the soft skill training was taught at Impact. We had to make sure that staff was aware of the do's and don'ts for us in the community. If you take an individual out somewhere and you see this person is having some type of behavior or whatever, don't draw attention to that fact. Kind of ask them to move away from that situation. Don't put our individuals into a place to where they're going to fail. So give them the training, the skills, and the tools that are needed to be successful in the community. And we had to make sure of that with soft skill training. Workplace success groups. We made sure that a lot of people said, well, you sold all your buildings. Where y'all going to have group sessions and stuff at? There's local churches. There's career centers. What do you mean career centers? Career centers can't say our individuals can't come to career center. So we're actually able to go in and reserve a room and stuff to have training for our staff and for our individuals to come and meet. So what did that do? That got them opportunity to meet other individuals in the community. And it had an opportunity not just to meet them, their peers, but everyone else too. And that's really important, because if you're in a segregated workshop with over 100 and some individuals, and that's all you see all day, every day, when you're out in the community and it's just a group of 3 with one staff, and you're getting to see everybody else, what they're doing, what their life's about, and what they're doing throughout the day. And that's what our staff was trained to talk to them about. Talk to them about, what do you see this person doing? Would you like to do that? What do you think about that? Is that interesting? Does that interest you? Through discovery, we made sure that our staff was trained in discovery to make sure that they know what to look for, what to educate our individuals on. And our individuals educated us a lot. Are the people we support knowledgeable? There again, we wanted to make sure they had the knowledge. And through community job exploration, we've done that with discovery. We wanted to see what really piqued our individuals' interest. We wanted to see that. And we found out by being out in the community, there was a lot of things they were telling us. There was a lot of things in the shelter workshop they didn't tell us. That's the reason why we had so many behaviors in the workshop. Trust me, that's why we had so many. And are the families supportive? In other words, we had informational meetings to where our staff, the ISCs, and the families, we all got together and always talked about the concerns and supports. The supports the individuals need, the safety, the ongoing communication and stuff like that. We just didn't just say go. We made sure you had the knowledge and experience to go. We had job clubs, and these job clubs was held at the local career centers, local churches, because there again, we don't have any more centers, no more workshops. So, and then this job club can be used to enhance the likelihood of success. They should be community-based. We're in the community having them. Embracing integrated settings, offer opportunities of socialization, relationships, encourage career movement, provide career enhancement. We wanted to make sure all these things was addressed in our job club. In the job club, we've done a lot of social skills, soft skill training, the proper way to dress, the proper way to look. We even had we had mirrors with. In some of the classes we held, we always brought a mirror. One of those, you women, you have to get up every day and you're in the mirror for long periods of time. You're looking, see how things look. We men, we just get up, make sure we clean, smell good, and we go on. We out the door. But you women, you're in the mirror. My wife, I'm thinking, will you ever get out of that mirror? But we wanted to make sure that in these clubs that we did have that tall mirror that most women have. So an individual could actually see themselves and see what's presentable and what's not presentable. We actually had some of our staff dress inappropriately and had some that dress properly in these job clubs. Because it's important to note that we just cannot talk what we're trying to do. We have to show what we're trying to do. And it's also important to know that I learned a long time ago from doing this, it's not their failure, it's our failure. If they're not looked at as a part of the community and they're out there with us, it's our fault. It's not the individuals that we have a privilege of working with and serving fault. It's our fault. So we've got to make sure they're ready. We've got to make sure they're prepared. And that's what a lot of these classes and training do. Today at Impact, our focus is providing our participants with a meaningful life through Support Employment Day. That means going to work. Integrated employment instead of sheltered workshop. Individualized community employment. I'm happy to say and proud to say that we've got over, and those numbers will show here in a minute, we have over 30-something individuals working out in the community. And none of those jobs are enclaves. None of those jobs are group jobs. They're individual jobs. Individual ownership. There's no such thing as, well, if Johnny don't make it to work today, we'll send Bob. No. If Johnny don't make it to work today, Johnny gonna get in trouble. And we make sure the employer tells Johnny he can't be missing work. Because we did not want this community, nor the employers that we talked to think that we're wanting charity. We wanted to customize these jobs to where it was a benefit to the employer. And one of the guys said, well, I like what you do, Lee, and I really enjoy what you do, but what if I got to fire him? What do you mean, what if you got to fire him? If he's not doing his job, I want you to fire him. I'll be the first to say he needs to be fired. But with the right supports, that won't happen. The right supports, whether it be a job coach or natural supports. I believe in natural supports. We have to start out with job coaches sometime, but I believe in natural support. Co-workers helping our individuals keep successful jobs. But we just don't walk away from that. In my department, we still check on our individuals that does not have a job coach. We do not check once every 2 months. Their job is to check once a week. Go in there and check and see how things are going. And when our individuals are not working and they're doing community-based, they're out in the community doing community-based, which is for 6 hours. They're doing discovery. They're doing Meals on Wheels. They're volunteering. There's a lot of things they do. They have a meaningful day by going to certain different places of their choosing. It's not where we want to take them, it's where they want to go. And we make sure that it's not about us, it's about them. And we make sure that their day is cooperated that way to where it's meaningful. It's a purpose behind it. And when they go home, they have something to talk about. Impact numbers in June of 2014. Like I stated before, we have over 30 individuals employed out in the community. And the average hours they work a week is 20. And the average per hour wage is $7.75, which minimum wage in the state of Tennessee is $7.25. So these individuals are making a little bit above minimum wage. 27% of our individuals are employed in community employment. 27%. Now, when I started like 10 years ago, we probably had about 5% because they didn't believe in it then. But Impact believes in it now. A little story to tell. When our board directors back some 10 years ago, before I started, when they had board meetings, you know how big wheels are. Some of our board members were bank presidents and stuff like that, business owners, and they always want to look at the bottom line. And support employment was never discussed in the board meetings because there was no revenue source. But today, it's pretty much the first thing the board has talked about. What is support employment doing? How are things looking in support employment? Because it is a revenue driving force. And it's positive too, positive. Our funding sources, Department of Intellectual Development and Disability, we have what they call employment special needs rates, and that's when an individual has to have a job coach. And we have individual rate, that's where the individual has to have at least 3 contacts a week on how they're doing to where that job won't go away from them. And then we have community-based day rates. That's where the individuals out in the community doing 6 hours community work, volunteering or whatever. That's part of our funding source. And we also have a letter of agreement with the state of Tennessee for its Department of Rehab, which a lot of people say VR, DRS, but we have a letter of agreement with them. State of Tennessee has changed it from, at the time it used to be called a letter of understanding, but the state of Tennessee is called a letter of agreement. And with that letter of agreement, Impact holds 3 of those agreements, and that's trial work experience, support employment, job readiness, and job placement. Impact plans for the future. Serving more people on the waiting list through the new support employment. Tennessee has a new support employment waiver program. To become an employment network, Ticket to Work, where actually was awarded a grant for $10,000 to do 3 of these things that's on this list right now. We were awarded a grant to go out and become an EN, which is a employment network, which is Ticket to Work through Social Security, to employ 2 CWICs, Certified Work Incentive Counselors, to have 2 Certified Employment Support Professionals. And we are already in the making of that now. We've actually sent in our application to be an EN. I go sometime next week, and me and another staff, to take our certification to be employment support professionals. And we've got 2 people already lined up to go to the school and the training to be CWICs. So that's real important, in which we'll have more time one day to talk about that. I'm probably running out of time because I don't want to miss these success stories. Now, with all that being said, how do we know that it's worked? How do we know it's something that everybody loves and everybody wanted to do? I can tell you how we know, because of our success stories. Employment success stories. I'm going to start out with this young man here, John. He's 49 years old. He has been in our segregated workshops for 15 years. 15 years. At the closing of our workshop, John wanted a job. John wanted to go to work. In the workshop, he was never productive. He didn't do very much production at all. And when he talked about wanting to go to work, we was kind of skeptical. He wasn't a big producer, so I don't know. John had some disability, intellectual and developmental disabilities. One of the things John loved to do, he loved to talk real loud. I mean, he would distract people with his loud voice. He loved commercials, and he would always imitate those commercials, and he would talk loud, everybody would hear him. So when he said he wanted to go to work, customized employment popped into my head. We've got to customize, we've got to carve out, we've got to do something that we know John can do, that it was not interfere with his disability for us, that loud talking, because he was not going to stop. We knew he was not going to stop. So we found him a job. We found him a job at night cleaning office buildings, one particular office building. He works 5 nights a week, 3 hours a night, and he loves it. He loves his job. He tells us all the time, I got to go to work to make that money. Go to work to make that money. We never thought he could do it. We really honestly didn't, because the fact he did not show that he was a producer in the workshop. But what he taught us is this: he didn't want to work in that workshop. He wanted to be out in the community working. And his family was not supportive of him going to work either. His family was against it. They did not want, and I hate to say it, the mama said, I do not want my baby working. 40-something years old, I don't want my baby working in the community. But John's father had passed, and the mom had become ill and sick to where she could not take care of John. So John came into one of our supported living homes. And then he was his own conservator. His family was not his conservator. We honored the family's wishes at the time, but since he became a part of our program, we honored his wishes. Hey, he wanted to go to work, and we made sure that's what he done. And he loves his job, and that's all he talks about is his job. The next lady, Carrie, she's 60 years old. She's been working in the community for 4 years now. She works at a college. a community college where she's in the kitchen washing dishes and stuff like that, and she loves it. That's the first job she's ever had in the community. She's 60 years old. Can you imagine you being 60 years old and never had a job in the community? That's the message we're sending to our individuals that's in these shelter workshops now. You don't have to go to work. Yes, you really do. To be a part of the community, you're only going to feel a part of this community if you're out there working in this community. She's 60 years old and never worked. For the last 4 years, she has worked. And she is treated as an equal on this job. The co-workers love her. The manager love her. The bosses, the whole 9 yards love Carrie. Because Carrie clocks in at 9 o'clock and Carrie goes to work. Carrie is not trying to find a cell phone to text her friends, waiting on a phone call. She stays on task. She clocks in. She takes her breaks when she's supposed to take her breaks, and she goes right back to work. When there's no dishes coming down the line, Carrie grabs a broom. Are we that dedicated? No, we're going to wait on those dishes. But Carrie is not waiting on dishes. She's out sweeping. She's focused. She loves her job. And she tells you that every day. And she's making $8.75 an hour. Minimum wage, $7.25, she's making $8.75. She started out making minimum wage, but they loved her. She's a part of that. And she worked for like 4 years. She's probably only missed, 7 days in the 4 years she's been employed? And those 7 days, 3 of them was vacation days. 4 of them she was sick, and when she was sick, she was trying to go to work. I still got to go to work. They're going to fire me. They're going to fire me. She told her caregiver, call Mr. Brown. Tell Mr. Brown that I'm coming to work. Don't let them fire me. She was that concerned. Are we that concerned about our jobs? No, she is. The last success story that I'm going to talk about is Cindy. I say how you save the best for last. I'll save the best for last. I'll tell you this story about Cindy. Doesn't communicate very well. She's 50 years old. She's been in a workshop for 25 years. 50 years old. She works at Goodwill. But the department she works in, sales has increased like 6% since she's been there, because she loves what she does as cleaning and straightening out the frames. The frames at Goodwill, I'm pretty sure some of you have been there. They just chaotic. They all over the place. You really can't find the one you really want. Well, when Cindy took this job at Goodwill, she made sure they was in order, the smallest to the biggest, and she stayed focused with it. She was so focused that when customers come up there and start looking at them and moving them around, don't you touch it, don't you touch that. She wanted them to stay straight, and she wanted them to stay organized. Don't you touch that, don't you touch that. We had to talk to her about that and let her understand that that's why she's got a job. And the best part of this story is this. Her family was some of the family members that did not want the workshops to close. My daughter can't go to work in the community. What is my daughter going to do every day? I do not want my daughter riding around in a van. Too much stuff can happen to her. She can be in an accident. I mean, we heard all kind of stories. All kind of stories. How did I convince the family that Cindy wanted to go to work? So happened I was in on a COS meeting during the transition to where she was going from shelter workshop to community base. And in that meeting, being in support employment, first thing I asked, because technically that's the first thing they're supposed to ask, do you want a job? But in this particular meeting, that wasn't the first thing they asked Cindy. They asked Cindy, what do you want to do every day? I asked Cindy, do you want to go to work? And Cindy said, yes, I want a job. And I convinced the family through trial work experience that it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Just let me take her out in the community to 3 off-site settings to let her be, evaluated, an assessment to see what she likes, what she's shining at, and what she's good at. Oh, the family said, I'm not sure about this, Lee. I just don't know. But today, the family member calls me up to tell me that they are so glad that I found their daughter a job. They have actually given me letters of referral to me to give to other business people about what we do and how we do what we do, and to tell the people how this made a difference in their daughter's life. It tremendously changed her whole life because she's actually going to work. And all of this happened because we shut the workshops down. I have more stories, but I'm only going to tell you these 3. We have more individuals we've placed in employment since the shelter workshop closed. We've actually had like 7 people we found the job for in the community since the workshop closed. I've been with Impact for 10 years. We've had individuals, I don't never look at numbers. My boss looks at numbers. I don't ever look at numbers. She has to tell me, well, y'all done good. Y'all done good. Oh, really? Thank you. But when she started telling me the story about Lee, since you started in support employment, do you know we have individuals that still got their jobs 7 years later? We have individuals that have had their job for 7 years in the community. Individual jobs, individual placement, ownership of the job. It's their job and they love it. And that's why I'm passionate about what I do. I love what I do because I love the fact that I help with the support of my executive director and support of my staff and my team. I help make a difference in someone's life. I just don't talk it, I believe it. The difficulties lies not so much in developing new ideas as in escaping from old ones. Thank you very much.